This is the April 20th, 2023 board meeting. We're bringing this meeting to order at 5:00 p.m. Wendy, do we have any comments from the public on non-agenda items?
We do not.
Okay, no comments. Seeing no comments, we will now convene to closed session. We will come back at 6:00 p.m. for open session. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wiseburg Unified School District Board Meeting, April 20th, 2023. Calling this meeting to order at 6:00 p.m. Everyone looks so well rested tonight. I guess nice spring break everybody had, right? So tonight we have a relatively short agenda, 3 special presentation items that I'm excited about. We will have a special presentation from Noemi of NAS, our bond program manager, providing a Measure EE bond update. We'll have a second special presentation from Keen Consulting with regards to state funding eligibility. And our last presentation, our very own Amir, will be discussing and providing an update on the technology upgrade project. So with that, Wendy, would you please do the honors and take roll call?
Absolutely. Mr. Van Lolo?
Present.
Dr. Goldman?
Here.
Ms. Canetta? Here. Ms. Happy? Here. Mr. Martinez?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Hasty, it's great to see you. Would you please do the honor of the meeting?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good. All right. We have nothing to report at a closed session this evening. And now let's go ahead and begin with a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Joanne.
Second.
Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items, Wendy?
This time I have no public comment.
Thank you. All right. Silvers, I'll turn it to you for directions to our presenters.
So we're moving right in then to our first special presentation. This one is on the Wiseburg Unified School District Measure EE bond, and the goal of the district is going to be to provide some sort of bond update or bond program update. The second board meeting of every month. You know, when we have 2 board meetings, we'll do it the 1 board meeting on one board meeting month. So we'll try and relegate most of our facilities talk and facilities agenda items to the best of our ability to that second meeting. You know, minus some routine restricted maintenance or some maintenance issues. But in this process, we've had an opportunity to work with NAZ, with Noemi and Cherie through prioritization of projects, looking at our bond, our first allocation, our first funding. And being able to put forth some of those project recommendations that we think will fit in and also be good impact here to the community. So without further ado, I think Noemi will be on. Is that right? Is she here? Okay, perfect. So Noemi will join us live from somewhere in the world.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me?
Yes. Hello, Noemi. We can see you and we can hear you. Welcome.
Excellent. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay. Okay, are you able to see my screen? Wonderful. Let me just move this so I can see the rest of my screen myself. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Board President Martinez, Board of Trustees, Dr. Silvers, and members of the audience. My name is Noemi Avila Zamudio, and I am the district's bond program manager. I do apologize that I could not be there in person this time around, but I will see you in person for the next update. I do have another member of our executive team there, our program management team, Sri Bishop Grego, is in the audience representing our company. Nonetheless, it is my absolute pleasure to join you via Zoom this evening to present our first Measure EE bond program update. So these are the topics that we'll be covering this evening. I have prepared a concise presentation that aims to provide a brief Measure EE program update. We'll take some time to review and confirm the Facilities Master Plan Board priorities. I will also briefly review the first bond issuance, Series A, and then we'll take a few minutes to review the Facilities Master Plan, specifically the Facilities Condition Assessment, which has ultimately guided our recommendation for the draft Series A project list that we will be sharing with you this evening. I will then close with next steps, and we'll open up for an opportunity for questions. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, this is our first Measure EE bond program update. Our team officially kicked off our program management services on March 29th, 2023. And as the district prepares for its first Series A bond sale of $25 million, our first order of business was to confirm the district's project needs, the goals, and the priorities in order to be able to develop a well-planned strategy that will help me define the scope, the budget, and the schedule, which I will cover in more detail later in my presentation. We have also started the process of forming the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. The application period, in fact, just closed last week on April 14th. It is my understanding that we received 20 applications. Our plan is to bring forth the recommended Citizens Oversight Committee members, the list, at the May 11th board meeting so that we can get that committee up and running as soon as possible. Our team has also been working diligently with Amir on the network infrastructure project, and since this is one of the top safety and security priority projects for the district. And another exciting project that we have been working on is exploring the feasibility of solar projects at 5 school sites at Juan de Anza, 138th Street, Juan Cabrillo, RH Dana, and the district office. Now these projects would align with the district's goal of promoting sustainability and reducing energy cost. Excuse me. We're in the process of working with SiteLogic at this time to develop a feasibility study. And our goal is to return at a future board meeting with more information regarding the financial viability of the solar projects. And the good news is that there is no cost to the district if the numbers don't pan out. Lastly, please be advised that I have requested a proposal from LPA Architects for the development of design standards. Now, this would be, I'm sorry, I'm not sure why these all jumped. Okay. This would be an extension, basically, of the Facilities Master Plan contract. And it really makes sense to continue with LPA since they were the ones that prepared the Facilities Master Plan, as well as the educational specifications. Now, the development of the design standards is very important, as you can imagine, because this will provide a cohesive and consistent design language basically across all district schools and facilities. We will need these design standards as soon as we start engaging architectural firms for our upcoming projects.
No.
Yes.
Sorry. Could you
Yes.
just give just a quick overview? I mean, just so that everybody understands design standards. I mean, if there's an example that you could give us to what that would entail or be.
Absolutely. They call them design standards, but they're basically district material standards. For example, very specific HVAC units so that you have the same equipment, the same fire alarm equipment, public address system, your PA, your clocks, right down to your carpets and your sheet vinyl. So it's just all of your material standards. That way you have a cohesive standard across the district. That way you don't end up with different materials that becomes really a nightmare for MNO to maintain. And we don't want to leave it up to the architects to determine what is best for the district. We'll work in collaboration with LPA to determine, and will involve IT, will involve maintenance and operation throughout the process to help develop those design standards. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay, thank you. So this next slide, the information contained in the next 3 slides, as a matter of fact, is very important, as this information will guide how current and future projects are going to be identified. As you may recall, LPA architects presented the results of the facilities master plan update at the Board of Trustees meeting on May 26, 2022, basically at the board workshop. This is where LPA presented the large thermostat, and board members were asked to prioritize projects based on the 15 categories contained within the facilities master plan. LPA conducted this exercise to develop and understand the board priorities for facility improvements, while at the same time aligning the input that was received not only from the district, but from the community stakeholders throughout the facilities master planning process. Now, the board chose to rank priorities, as you may recall, by scope of work categories versus individual projects. For example, the items listed on your screen here, items 1 through 4, are some of the scope of work categories that were included. And again, there were 15 in total. And as we prepare for the first Series A projects, we would like to confirm that the following 4 categories listed here, which really come down to safety, functionality, and operations, still reflect the Board of Trustees' thoughts in terms of prioritization of scope. So safety and security, administration, staff support, student and counseling. Number 3, modernization of existing classrooms. And 4, exterior play surfaces, play fields, and hard courts. I don't know if you want to stop and ask any questions here, or I'll continue and then we can take questions at the end.
I just
Go
have
ahead. Go ahead.
just one question.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if I'm sure it was just, you took this from how we had it in the thing, but I just noticed that in number 2, it says psych, speech, IEP conference and counselors, doesn't mention OT services, occupational therapists. And I just want to make sure that, like, this is not an exclusive list of the spaces, but a sample.
No, and correct. And you're absolutely right. This list was basically taken from the facilities master plan, but the scopes will be further defined as we start engaging with architects, meeting with the end users, and then we'll be able to redefine some of these categories.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Moving on. Why isn't it moving? Okay, here we go. So this next slide provides a breakdown for the first bond sale, Series A. And although the first sale is for $25 million, as you know, it's important to note that we will deduct 2.5% for bond administration fees, as well as 10% for program contingency. And this is deducted right off the top, thereby leaving a total of roughly $21.8 million for our first bond Series A projects. Now, before I move on to soft cost and hard costs, the types of expenditures that are generally covered under bond administration, for example, are bond counsel fees, legal services related to Measure EE, your annual financial and performance audit of your bond program, bank administrative fees, and so on. In terms of program contingency, on the other hand, this is used for unforeseen program expenses. And again, going back to the balance, leaving $21.8 million, roughly $5.5 million will go towards soft cost, thereby leaving approximately $16.4 million for construction cost. And I thought this was very important to show you, because when we think, okay, we have $25 million for our first bond series, by the time we deduct some of these costs or percentages, our reality is really $16.4 million. Now, just as a reminder, soft costs are associated with the planning, the design, and the coordination of construction projects, such as your architectural and engineering fees, your inspection fees, DSA fees, abatement, construction management, etc. Hard costs in comparison represent any work or cost associated with actual construction. So basically your general contractor or your multi-prime contractors, depending on the project delivery method that the district decides to move forward with. So this next slide summarizes the facilities master plan. This is the facilities condition assessment for the various sites. The needs assessment of the facilities master plan basically identified programmatic needs, functional needs, as well as condition of sites. Now, each category that was evaluated was ranked using a facilities condition category, shown basically here in the hexagons to the right of your screen. For instance, category 0 means no modernization work is necessary. Generally, these sites are newer or modernized within the last 8 to 10 years. Category 1 sites basically mean that minor modernization is needed. In this category, light modernization is generally recommended. Category 2 sites are older, therefore a comprehensive modernization is recommended. Category 3 basically translates to comprehensive modernization and or replacement of those sites. Now, sites in this category were basically built between 1920 and 1950. So this is why they're in this category. Now, please note that this does not mean that because you see Juan Cabrillo under category, for example, under category 0, it doesn't mean that they're not going to receive any improvements. I want to make sure that that's clear. Juan Cabrillo will still receive safety and security upgrades as well as 21st century improvements. This basically address more the age of school and in terms of eligibility for modernization. So this is a recommended Series A project list, and it was prepared in collaboration with Dr. Silbers and Dr. Hasty. We basically use the information that I shared in the previous 3 slides to develop a draft list of recommended Series A projects. As I mentioned earlier, our first order of business, as soon as we kicked off our contract, was to confirm the district's needs, the district's goals, and the board priorities, and use this information basically as our guiding principles. Secondly, we looked at the amount available for the first bond issuance, which, as you know, is a limited amount. Again, $25 million, but after we deduct all of our required categories, we are left with $16.4 million. Thirdly, we reviewed the facilities master plan condition assessment and prioritize older sites first, which again ties back to needs. And lastly, it's imperative that we look at projects holistically. We need to be strategic on how we sequence projects. For instance, you may have noticed that I did not recommend completing safety and security projects first across the board at all sites. But rather, the reason we didn't do that was because this was done strategically. Because it's much more cost effective to align safety and security projects with those sites that may also, for example, need modernization, whether it's a light modernization or a comprehensive modernization. This is done to avoid spending bond dollars on a project today that, if not sequenced correctly or looked at holistically, might end up being demolished at a later date as part of another project. So for example, I'll use the electronic access controls, basically like the key cards to access. That is one of the district's top priority in terms of safety and security. If we were to move forward with just that project across the board at all sites now, and not focus on any modernization, then let's say maybe next bond issuance, whether it's Series B or perhaps the third one, Series C, we determine that we're ready to modernize that site, we might end up having to demolish those doors. And sometimes you can salvage equipment, but if the infrastructure, since it all has to be hardwired, might not be that feasible. Therefore, we want to, again, be strategic, look at things holistically, and wherever possible, align projects that are tied into modernization to be able to be as cost effective with our bond dollars. And again, I just want to emphasize that this is still a draft list. It is not set in stone by any means. but we wanted to come prepared with the district's recommended list of projects as a starting point to obtain input from the board. And basically to get your feedback. Once we engage architects for these projects and define scope of work, we might have to come back and share some of those priorities. We might find ourselves not being able to complete all of these first Series 8 projects. We might find that, we might have to take one of these and in no particular order, any of these projects, and defer them perhaps to a later bond issuance perhaps to Series B. Any questions on this slide? Oh, and actually, one more thing I wanted to point out. You may notice that we have allocated just tentative budgets at this time. Now, these budgets were based on our $16.4 million that we have available, basically. Not 16, I'm sorry, our $21.8 million that we have available. 5.5 approximately of that will go towards the soft cost, and the 16.4 will go towards construction, your hard construction cost. Any
So,
questions on this slide? Yes.
Just real quick, the one exception, so I know you had mentioned that this list could come back and be, basically reorganized, or we may need to restructure some of the financial side, on the financial side there, but the network infrastructure, we're getting into a large purchase today, so that's pretty much a check, and we're gonna have to continue down that path. So I just wanted to point that out as the one outlier.
Thank you. And that is correct. That is the only project that is moving forward at this time. We have not engaged any architects yet for any of the other remaining projects. And I'll cover that in more detail in our next slide.
I have a question about
Yes.
continuing kind of along the lines that they started with the network infrastructure project. We know that this is phase 1 of that project. Do the other phases have to be, sort of going along a traditional way of planning use of the bond dollars? Do the other phases of that network infrastructure project also need to be at least loosely planned before going forward with the first phase? Or how does that work when a project is a multi-phase project?
That's a great question. So your network infrastructure project currently is looking at the big picture, basically creating that server room to be able to support all of the sites. As part of our individual future projects, it will also have a technology and a safety and security component to it. And that's why we're aligning this, for example, with modernization, because in this case, if we're touching any of the classrooms, a lot of that comes with your AV equipment, for example, your projectors, your screens, your speakers, all of that is tied in, and all of your data ports, basically all of your low voltage needs are part of that, and that is done via the modernization. So that's, again, going back and looking holistically at projects. We'll make sure that we are looking at the big picture, basically, going forward. I don't know if I answered your question.
You answered my question, but in what way is that done? Because is that in the itemization or the sort of detailed planning that goes along with, let's say, that 138th Street School Safety and Security and Modernization
Yes.
plan?
Yes, those two projects are aligned. Any modernization and safety and security project will be aligned in a similar fashion. That way we can capture that once and not go, end up demolishing stuff at a later date.
What if when we do the 138th and Aviation Playfield, we decide that we want a snack stand that needs to have Wi-Fi, or that needs to have some sort of voice and data capability? Is that always going to be reviewed in light of the infrastructure plan?
Yes,
Will those
so as we look,
capabilities- Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
No, that
Finish
was
and
the
then I'll
question.
respond.
Yeah, you.
Oh, okay. Yes, we absolutely look at every single project individually as well. So as we start designing for 135th and Aviation Playfield, or even the Wiseburn Soccer Field, if the district determines that they need a snack bar, like you said, or any sort of facility, then at that point, obviously, we bring utilities. We'll work with the architect to develop. So just because we have a project, we have a concept. That's why it's important to bring in the architects and start defining that detailed scope of work. But yes, all of that is addressed during that specific project.
I guess
But
that
we
was
look
my
at the
question.
big picture at the same time. So we look at the individual project, but at the same time, we're planning ahead. We look at what other future projects are planned and how that may impact this particular project. We don't just move forward with, randomly. We always look at the big picture.
Okay, thanks.
Noemi, this is Neil Goldman.
Yes.
First of all, my compliments to you on your knowledge of this project, your big picture, holistic view. It's very reassuring and impressive and appreciated. Thank you. My two questions. One was to building on what Joanna was just asking about relative to the infrastructure. On our budget this evening is something near $1 million in expense. But again, that's not the completion of it. So I'm just confused how the money works relative to this. If we have $3 million, but we're only going to be spending $1 million now, it may be many months before we need that extra money. So I don't understand how that's allocated and used. So that's let me stop at that. That's my first question. I have a second. Let me start with that.
I'm having a hard time listening, hearing you. But I believe you're questioning how the $3 million was allocated.
Yeah, I didn't, I'm sorry, Doctor, could you ask one more time? 'Cause I think I understand.
We are allocating $3 million in the current funding for the Series A. But we are only spending $1 million in this current period. It's going to be many months before that. Oh, well, yeah, probably not before Series 2 is funded, I'm guessing, where we would then have money needed for the additional. I guess what happens to that $2 million that's just going to be sitting, could that be utilized differently? I guess is my question.
I would say, Dr. Goldman, that 3 million, obviously it's a budget number. We're hoping to come under that. But there are some purchases we're gonna make, some high level purchases we're gonna make sooner than 2 years. We have a whole phone upgrade that we need to do, as well as some, I'll let Amir talk about, he's gonna actually give a presentation. So I think we'll see some of those items, but there are some, I think we'll get through most of that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully question number 2 will be hearable.
And before we jump into question number 2, that's right. We don't want to steal Amir's thunder because I'm sure he's going to cover in detail. But we also, as part of this network infrastructure project, we are going to engage an architectural firm to assess the server room. We want to make sure that the server room will be able to support all of this great equipment that we're purchasing. So there are going to be some expenditures.
Thank you. This all makes sense.
Okay.
The second question had to do with first of all, I'm in agreement with what's on the screen as to our priorities. Relative to 138th Street and Anza, will we see the detail of that at some point? I'm assuming tonight is not the time for that.
Correct. Absolutely. This is just a draft list with some tentative budgets. Our next step, and I'll cover that basically in our next step. Any other questions? And then I'll get to the next steps.
Yeah, I think you can proceed with
Okay.
next steps, Noemi.
Okay, great. So to be able to answer your question, basically what we would like to happen tonight is we would like to confirm that the board priorities are still those top 4 items that I shared in the previous list, and confirm the recommended Series A project list. We want to make sure that everyone's on board, everyone has an opportunity to provide input. And then our team will work, as I mentioned earlier, with LPA architects to start developing those district-wide design material standards for all of our upcoming projects, because our architects are going to need that as soon as possible, as soon as we start designing for all of these projects. Our team has also already issued a request for qualifications to establish a pool of highly qualified architectural and engineering firms. The pool will be selected based on qualifications and experience and their approach to similar projects. Now, as projects are identified, similar to the list of projects that I shared in the previous slide, firms within the pool will then be asked to provide a fee proposal for each of these projects. What that means is that the firms will essentially compete against each other. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure that no firm believes that they're exclusive to the district and that complacency doesn't hit, because we see that all too often with firms. You know, our district select one firm, they like them, they start off great, but then complacency hits, or they no longer start, they stop basically sharpening their pencils. So we want to make sure that when it comes to fees, since we have such a limited amount of money, we want to make sure that we're asking them to continue to remain competitive and sharpening their pencils. And our goal is to bring a list of recommended firms at the May 25th board meeting for the board's review and approval. And once we have the confirmed list of projects, then I'll be able to develop individual project budgets, schedules, and we'll be able to come back to you and show you, once we have more of a design concept, we'll be able to share that with the board. Right now, this is our first update. This is extremely in draft form. Like I said, we just kicked off on March 29th. But we really hit the ground running, and our goal is to continue to provide similar updates to the board on a monthly basis, with our next update at the May 25th board meeting. And I believe that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Yeah, Rebecca.
Hi, Noemi, it's Rebecca Hamburg, Happy again.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Second, what Neil said about the quality of the presentation and your knowledge is very impressive. So thank you
Thank you.
for that. And I guess I have two questions. One is, I see all these next steps, and I'm curious about the next steps with the bond oversight committee now that we have the applications and like where that fits into this process. I'm sure the community is interested. You know, once we have these budgets and schedules and stuff, at what point do they become engaged? We need to select them, obviously, all those things.
So we received 20 applications. The deadline closed on April 14th. It's a great turnout in terms of applications. The district is in the process of reviewing, and our goal is to bring a recommended list, basically your citizens oversight committee, generally anywhere from 7 to 10 members, to the May 11th board meeting. So at your next board meeting, you'll be approving your citizens oversight committee. That way we can hit the ground running with them as well. We'll as soon as we have your approval, we'll inform them, and then we'll schedule our first meeting.
Great. Thank you. That was my main question.
Any other questions?
Have a comment.
Okay,
Answer your question.
There's a comment from Roger.
Noemi, and I just wanted to say thank you. I had the privilege of seeing this presentation in the facility subcommittee a little bit earlier, but I wanted to thank you and your team for really understanding the district priorities so quickly. There's a lot to take in as a bond program manager, especially as you get started. But I think you definitely captured all the information and all the meetings that we have had to get us to this point as well. Really looking forward to working with you and the team with regards to our
Likewise.
projects that are coming up. So thank you. Thank you for that great presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And Noemi, I echo the comments of my colleagues. Excellent presentation, and thank you very much to you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noemi. That was great.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. And
I think Sheree has, did you have something to add, Sheree? I'm kidding, Sheree. No. No, I'm kidding. All right. Do we, are we ready to move, sorry, intro number 2?
yes, I think we're ready for presentation.
All right. So I believe we have April, is April and Jamie on both, or just April? Oh, great. Jamie King and April are both here with us today it's kind of a good piggyback to the last presentation, our program, our bond program, because with that, we're also really wanting to be proactive in how we seek opportunities for grant funding at the state level, or whatever level that we can to help supplement some of our bond program dollars. So just really thankful to our team at King Consulting for all their work and really dedication and professionalism. So thank you all for being here.
Absolutely. We are thrilled to be back and we have some great information for you. I loved the last presentation. I thought it was wonderful, and congrats to the progress you've made since you passed your bond. Congratulations on passing your bond and moving forward with all the good work you're going to do for the students of your school district. We have a fairly short, we don't have an actual presentation, but we are here. I know April and I were both here last July. April was here in November, and then we actually came down and met with Dr. Silvers about a month ago to just talk about where you're at in the process. Have you done your RFP? Yes, you got a PM on board. You're doing your RFP for architect selection. And, you know, we're an integral part of the process because we want to make sure that those local bond dollars that your community has dedicated to you, that you're stretching those as far as you can. So if I could share my screen, I'll give you an update of your eligibility for the current year. And then I will also share with you your dashboard, which I believe will be shared with all of you after the meeting. So I think we presented a kind of a bare bones version of your dashboard the last time that we presented last July when we were talking about coming on board and helping you out. And it's live now. So we have multiple tabs at the bottom of your dashboard. We have an information tab that just has kind of when was it last updated, some basic notes, in-house notes for us that you'll see if you go here and look at your dashboard. I obviously just screenshotted the projects that are very much in draft, but that have been discussed. That's important for us to know as we search for funding for you, your bond issuances, et cetera. You have a funding applications tab. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. A cash flow tab. I'll go over that as well. But the good news is that your modernization eligibility for the current year has been completed. And because you had some turnover of some facilities and an increase in the pupil grant amounts that go up every January, your eligibility went up by about $1.4 million. So you were sitting at 3.9 million last year, and you've got almost 5.4 million this year. Again, those grant amounts go up every year in January, and these numbers never expire. It's your funding, and in order to apply for and obtain the funding, you need projects to submit with both California Department of Ed and Division of State Architect approval. Obtaining this funding does require that another statewide school facility bond pass, but the good news is there are two that are moving through the legislature, and you've probably gotten contacted to ask for your support of another statewide school bond. The statewide school bond has a real continuity of funding, except for that one, unfortunately, numbered Proposition 13 in 2020. So we're really hopeful about a bond passing next year. You will have some returns of grants. So when those facilities turn over, assuming the program doesn't change, we work closely with the state. That increased this year from about 12 million to 14 million. The pupil grant amounts themselves went up by almost 10% in January. So those go up based on the cost of construction in California.
And this is really exciting to look at because as you work through this first phase of your projects, your bond projects, we should be able to capture what you're eligible for now. And then as you move into that second issuance and do those other projects, we will be able to collect that information. We're really excited to work closely with your new program manager, and we'll be able to collect that documentation and get these funding applications queued up and ready to submit as soon as those return of grants are eligible.
Your new construction eligibility, we're not quite done updating that yet. Again, that needs to be updated annually, and we'll bring that back to you at a future meeting. It will need to be updated. It's really project specific. So unless you're adding new classrooms, we do want to look at it kind of from a high level perspective. If you decide that you're going to add new classrooms, so pre-K classrooms or for SDC or classrooms at any grade level, or you're going to expand ancillary facilities, then we would take a deeper dive into this because it's really project specific. We still have your DSA tracker, your funding application history to show all of your good participation in the program, your You've received quite a bit of funding through the program since its inception. And then April, do you want to give them a quick update of their CalShape, and then I'll go over the funding applications?
Yeah, I've been working really closely with Dr. Hasty as well as Jonathan on these CalShape projects. I know they're getting ready to go out to bid on these. Your first project that was approved was for the application was for Juan de Anza Elementary. And so that has an earlier deadline because that one was funded earlier. The good news is that the next round, what is funding round 5 for the upgrade and repair grants, we expect to be open this fall. The CEC just released their latest drafts that were updating the guidelines for those upgrade and repairs, and that's to fund actual replacement units. So as you go through the assessment and maintenance process at each one of your sites, you'll come out with a report that'll have recommendations. So we should be able to leverage those reports to request additional funding in that next round. And Juan de Anza would likely be eligible in that round. There's a couple of caveats where they're really moving toward energy efficiency. So they want, electrified units, that kind of thing. So as more is built out and they firm up the guidelines for this next phase of funding, we'll be in communication with their amazing staff and work through those projects. Really exciting.
Yep. So really quickly and kind of from a high level perspective, we talked to you a little bit last July about how your funding application works. I know April brought back to you kind of what the process is, a lot of bureaucratic red tape, but the applications do get funded at the state. Right now, they're funding applications that were submitted in spring of 2020. So they're on about a 3-year timeline. But with the allocation of the governor's budget, that timeline has really been shrinking. So we're hopeful that as they're doing funded apportionments every month now instead of twice a year, they're kind of burning through the money that's left and everyone who's already gotten in line, so that when that new bond passes, we're really hoping that that timeline is much, much shorter. I went ahead while Noemi was giving her presentation and I took the projects that I know were very high level, and this will definitely change as you move through design. But I just wanted to share with you the potential. You're looking at, when we look at state funding, we have to cover your hard construction costs with the state funding. They're not going to pay for your soft costs for your projects. So we look at how much we could get you. So just taking the projects that have kind of already been high level identified at each site. So the 135th and Aviation, Data Middle, the play field, the safety, security, and mod at 138th. The network infrastructure is interesting. So you can do things district wide, but remember modernization eligibility is site specific, but you can take a district wide project like that $2.2 million network infrastructure project, and you can just prorate it by the number of sites you're doing work at, and then you can submit an application and get funded for that site's share of that project. And there are many ways to prorate it. So we've tossed that in here for now. And then the minor mod and the safety and security at De Anza. So based on the $5.4 million roughly that you have right now, we'd be able to take just those projects and submit them to capture all of that $5.4 million. And so, then once we have that, and, as we work through the applications, you'll be able to visit here, you'll be able to see what the funding application status is. Is it in progress? Has it been submitted? What date was it submitted? Is the state reviewing it? Have funds been released? We'll have better estimates of the projects. It might not be these projects. It could be other projects that you've identified. And we're so happy that you have a program manager, because we will work really closely with her and your architects to make sure that we're maximizing every dollar that you're eligible for.
That was such a great presentation. I have to really,
very good.
Going through and really specifying and clearly identifying the difference between the hard costs and the soft costs is not something that's always done. And it's an important distinction, because as Jamie said, when we look at funding through OPSC, we're really looking at those hard costs, the actual construction, the hammer and nails. So it was nice to see that laid out, and we really look forward to working with Noemi.
Yeah. You'll see here that you have your modernization eligibility and then your estimated state funding. Sometimes you have more eligibility than we can get you for a project, but in this case, we could capture all of it based on those very high level draft numbers that were put out today. And then a cash flow fiscal year, if you were able to, and it's not likely, hurry up and get, do CMAS for your fields and get DSA approvals for all your mods this year, you'd be looking at funding around 3 years from now. We also want to always let you have a place to go to see what is left to do on our end for the project. So we do have a next steps and tasks to finalize in here. And then we have some other information, just the multiple different application numbers that we need to track on our end. But I think it's a really helpful tool for you to be able to kind of go to, keep track of what we're doing, when is your state funding coming back. The typical process for a district who has a bond program like yours is that, you're looking at a 5 or 10-year bond program, multiple different construction projects going on. And while you're going through the design process and getting DSA approval, we're working with your program manager to get CDE approval to submit those projects for funding. You'll likely be already under construction or even done with construction before you get your state funding, but then you can take that state funding, put it back into your account to do more projects to extend your bond dollars even further. And I think that's all we have.
Amy and April, thank you for that wonderful presentation. You made Neil Goldman's day with that dashboard.
Good. Good.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Neil, I am happy. I'm doing a little fist bump here. And for our community, the work you do for us, we really appreciate your partnership. This could represent 40+% of our hard costs being leveraged for more. That is phenomenal and super appreciated. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We love what we do, and we are so thankful for the opportunity to be able to support your program. So thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Nice to see that our state eligibility increase. That's great. And then obviously the grant funding it seems to be going well. So thank you both.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
During the presentation, so
fantastic.
great presentation.
Right. Amir, they just found us money. They found us state eligibility funding. You got a tough act to follow.
For some reason, you're gonna spend money, they've got money. Yeah, that's right. Okay, should I jump?
Yeah.
Okay, so, we're, thankful to have Amir here with us today to present. It's been a pretty complex path that, Amir's picked this up pretty quickly, as he started, was trying to identify the needs that we had in our network, which were many. And some of the work that we needed to do to improve our network capacity and security, et cetera. So had a chance to put together a whole plan for this process and for this project. And then we had an opportunity, thank you to Joanne for taking time to meet with us as well. At the working group subcommittee for technology. So we're able to talk through different ideas. And so Amir, today, there's an agenda item for a lot of money on our agenda today, which is the first step of our technology rebuild. So Amir will share kind of the overview.
Welcome, Amir. Thank you.
And Amir, before you get started, you're in a great position because they find the money and you get to spend it. That's a good spot.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you and just trying to go over the. Thank you. All right. I'm here to present on Wiseman for School District Technology Modernization. I tend to use it upgrade, but I change it to modernization because as you see through this slide, there's a lot of new things coming into the mix. I'm going to go quickly, as I promised. The agenda tonight is we go over the priorities, the network modernization factors we consider in order to build our new network, looking at the hardware selection process, the RFQ process, our recommendations, action steps, and what we're going to bring before the board on May 11th. And we finish up with some questions and answers. This is the priorities we define. We categorize of the three main priorities. The priority one, I go by the dates, which happened over this summer, hopefully. We go by upgrading our switches, access points, server, and UPSs. I just want to explain what I mean by switch access point for servers for those people who don't have that much information about it, or audience at home as well. The switches is something which actually provide internet connectivity to the classrooms. access points. It's a Wi-Fi connectivity devices which normally hang from the ceiling, but provide data to wireless devices like Chromebooks, phones, etc. Server environment or data center server, which have all our computers basically, or data centers and data, whatever you want to call it. And there are UPSs, uninterrupted power supplies, which provide backup batteries, backup power to our appliances in case they have a power cuts. The next step, the priority one will be backup and disaster recovery solution. Phones, staff and student devices, software and licenses, and upgrade our network wirings. Our split wiring is in two parts. One, we need look at some of the wirings for wireless connectivities in the classrooms. The ultimate goal of entire this project is provide high bandwidth connectivity to classrooms, give them like a very good and reliable connection to students and teachers. Look at what existing issues as we have some wiring issues. Going through entire wiring across the district is going to be very tedious work, and its time-wise is not feasible. That's what it's split into two parts. And priority two, which is happened after this summer until in July 2024, we're going to work on the redundant internet connections. Currently, we have one network internet connection comes from Spectrum to our district. It means if that goes down, we actually have no connections. We're trying to look at the redundant network. We're looking at different solutions. It's not high priority. On the other hand, it is a priority. We're looking at the different solutions, make sure we spend the money wisely. We not go beyond our limits. Security cameras and access control is another one. We're looking at multiple solutions for now. And classroom technology, such as smart TVs, printers, and anything which actually we use in the classrooms as a priority two. And priority three is August 2025 onwards. We're going to look at internet connection. Again, it's the we call it resiliency word in the parentheses. August 2025, we off the contract with the Spectrum. We have more flexibility if I go to county and get a second line from them. That's something we have time to look into it. That's what put it like a third priority. And the last one is upgrading remaining network wirings, like a jack points on the walls in the classrooms for printers, phones. We have good connection for now. That's why I put the priority three. It's not that important compared to any other items we have on the list. If anybody has any question, I'm happy to answer before I move to the next.
One quick question.
Please.
Where is our main entry point in this district? Is it on the 135th and aviation site? Is it at ANZA? Where I'm not clear on that.
Absolutely. After the next slide, but to answer your question, that is ANZA.
ANZA.
ANZA, yes, is a data center.
I had a question on our backup and data recovery. Are we looking, I assume it'll be cloud-based?
Great question. There will be two parts. One, we have appliances on premises, which will sit in ANZA, and the offsite backup, we call it cold storage, goes to Microsoft Azure, which is a we always go ahead in terms of because data got bad, how we can recover. Now his whole building goes bad, how we can recover data. And just cover that as further that Microsoft actually replicate the data across the different zones. It's not one location, it will be distributed and secure as well. Yeah.
I mean, a question for you.
Sure.
At the project site of 135th and Aviation, where we demoed the site of Old Dana, there's a small structure there. Is that an MDF to only service Dana, or is that an IDF? Because it's still standing there, and we didn't demo it for some reason. I understood that was like an IDF or an MDF.
It's obviously an important building.
It's still there. I mean, it's doing everything else but that little building.
So that's actually equipment from SoCal Edison. So that is like their metering and vault that used to service all the electricity for some of Old Dana and then the SLC.
Okay, so
Is
it's
that like a main electrical service line for
So
that site there?
So it was initially, but they took out a lot of the power, and I believe right now it's only servicing the SLC. I have the tech coming out this upcoming Tuesday to verify and see what it's going to take to remove all their existing equipment.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. No.
It's not either of those
Not
things.
mobile.
It's only electric.
I just want to say that you notice that this is a combination of hardware and software. So what Amir is talking about, when you talked about switches and servers and so on, that's all hardware, if you will. Backup and disaster recovery is a lot of software. Software licenses is obviously software. So there's a combination here of actual capital equipment as well as software licenses. The other thing, the question about the ANZA facility being the main access point. One of the things that is going to be part of this plan, remember ANZA was built quite a while ago, which suggests that that room was built at the time ANZA was built. So we are gonna, part of this is gonna be reviewing that facility to make sure that it's fire safe, that it's earthquake safe, that it's appropriate to house this equipment, so that the facility itself is safe, much less the software and the hardware that's taking care of our data. So I just want to encourage you to know that facility, because it's 20 years old or so now, will also be reviewed in the context of all of this equipment going in there.
Part of that review, does that review at all, we're very different today, right? In the high school here, it's part of that review at all, is that location still? The location which should be the main.
Probably not, but it is the main location, and changing that is way out of budget. So ANZA school, as long as it exists, and it will continue to exist,
That's where it is.
that's where it is.
That was a humbling response.
That's also, Joanne, that's also part of what I think Noemi was talking about, that, when they do the safety, security and modernization look at ANZA, it's gonna be for this exact reason, right? So that we can make sure that. Yeah, that server ANZA, is right. Properly designed and all that, for sure. Sure. Yep.
Thank you, John. Thank you for backing up. This is back to a question some of you may have. As you can see, if you can point, there's a pointer here. Here it is. Sorry, it's a lag here. This is our public internet. The internet comes down, has to our firewall, which you already know about what the firewall is, and goes to our data center, and they distribute it across our sites. I just didn't want to put a name, but put site A. Let's assume this is 138, this is Dana, and so on. And we have a bunch of servers actually sitting and connecting to our data center. This is ANZA, the data center. And as you can see, I call it protected zone. I'll show you in the next slide what I call it protected zone. If the data center for any reason goes down, we lost connectivity everywhere because there's one point of failure in this design. These are current design. Moving forward. Before we go forward and see what we can do, our data center with our existing design, we look at some modernization factors. We did quite a lot of research, talked to the multiple vendors, look at the different school districts, and we summarize the most important points we have to take into consideration. Creating a network is a scalable. That's why we're going to bring the newest school, how we can expand it at a minimum cost. It's a modular design. If you want to replace something, security, reliability, and cost effective. It has a high performance and high reliability. Maximize the security. To me, as you can see, the most bullet on the top, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, talking about security. Most emphasis of a network in new modernization is about security. Security of our people, students, staff, and data and the processes. We're going to be able to monitor the traffic every directions. In the next slide, I'm going to explain in more details what we're doing by traffic in every directions. We have a secure backups. We need to be able to recover instantly. If something happened, how fast we can recover. I'm not talking about hours, I'm talking minutes. That's the ultimate goal is. And we're going to have a high bandwidth Wi-Fi 6E in classrooms. People are going to enjoy the new experience with the high bandwidth connectivity in the classrooms. And we have, of course, we will go to the high bandwidth Wi-Fi connectivity. We're going to need less network drops in classrooms, which actually increases security, lets ports people can access to it and plug something into it. And it's easy to maintain, and of course, it significantly reduces the cost. I'm talking about per network drops around about $600 to rewire them. Imagine you have 1,000 not off the network, you're saving $600,000. And plus, industry goes toward Wi-Fi. You heard about idea of IoT, Internet of Things. The core design feature, to my point of view as engineer, is planned for next 10+ years. I don't want to build something today which is few years going to be obsolete, and plan for 10 times more of the current capacity. And combined with this a scary picture. To summarize it, actually it's a zero trust policy or architecture. It means we don't trust any bits of information comes to a school district or leave the school district unless we know what the data should supposed to go, who's accessing it, and why they're accessing it. As you can see here, is about verifying who, this is actually, let me go back a little bit. It's the user devices, cameras, anything connected to our network. Is the point of connections. Is get verified. The data gets controlled and enforce some policies. And we decided, should they go further and access our data center or not? It is not get rejected. Is all part of the software is John already covered. The software behind the hardware going to decide how to enforce these policies. Who has access to what? What they doing our network? Are they guests? Where should they go? What they have to access, and so on and so forth.
And that addresses the ransomware sort of access that is destroying so much data and costing so much money for people. It is the first line of defense for protection from unauthorized access.
Thank you, John.
Isn't really good.
Thank you, thank you. I spent half an hour creating all of my slides. I spent an hour creating that diagram.
It's an interesting eyeball.
And actually, this is come from Microsoft in decipher it to 7th layer of the zero trust policy, which is actually, it's a kind of a standard these days across all the organizations, enterprise level organizations. As you can see on the left-hand side is our current design. As I mentioned, we have single point of failure, and I call this one north-south traffic. What I mean by traffic, internet comes to our district, goes to data center, and goes back to the internet. If you can see that black line in the middle, actually goes from here, sorry, from north, from internet goes to firewall, goes to data center, and goes back up. There is no left, right in this design. Considering that previous two slides, all the security and everything I'll talk about, we're going to come with a new design, which actually it, as well as a north-south traffic, we have an east-west traffic. I'm going to explain what is that in a second. If you see the internet up there, the data goes to our firewall and goes up the way to data center, but data center replaced with another firewall. We're not going to use the traditional core switches. We're going to use the kind of second firewall. It's much more powerful and control the traffic sideways. There's the east-west. Now, if we're going to have a redundant high availability, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we're going to have another firewall next to it, work as a kind of hold back hot spare. If those goes down, it's going to overload the traffic to other one. Make sure we have a constant traffic going across the sites. The benefit of this design on the right-hand side is, if this site get hit by ransomware, it's going to set to data center. Data center is going to spread across all the other sites. What this design is, if the site C hit by ransomware, something malicious happened there, it's going to block. These two are still operating. We're going to have one site to look into, completely isolated. We are safe.
That would presume that it gets past both firewalls into one of the sites.
Absolutely.
So Mira, but in this one, so I'm saying, I mean, I'm thinking it's just for the image itself, but it's the 3 sites here. We have more than that.
Yes, you can, yeah.
So it's just, it would be more arms to this, basically how it would go. Okay.
Yes.
So there's like our data center is no longer here. We're not seeing the data center on this.
Well, the data center actually is here.
Oh, you said it's behind the firewall.
Behind the firewall, sorry.
The high school included in this plan, the high school.
Absolutely. That's the next slide.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry,
Just one more thing, I just want before move to the next slide. If you can see that our current design, everything's, it's behind the data center. Even though we want to share some data with vendor, the vendor should come all the way inside the house, access some data, leave the district. If they decide to go somewhere else, they're free to go. There's a less visibility. Looking at that scary picture, now we have a server behind the first firewall. They have no business to our data center. If they want to share some data, they can come inside, get their data and then leave. They don't have to come our data center. They call it DMZ, it stands for demilitarized zone, is a primitive network. Absolutely. That's a primitive network, actually add more layer of security to our network. And just last bit, previous slide, I called this one protected zone. I called this one zero trust zone. As you can see, the large red block here, big city cover everything. No movement happen here without being checked and monitored. We can keep an eye on everything. Any question on that?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Discuss about.
I really appreciate that visual. Because
Thank you. Thank you.
As long as you continue to make your visuals scary, we're good.
But
This is-
understandable.
Thank you. Please just interrupt me, ask any question anywhere, have any doubt. This is our Harvard selection process. I just color coded, it's easier for me at least to read and explain. The first part is the solution. We look at the Cisco, Ruckus, Juniper. The green part, it's the switches and access points. We look at the multiple different vendors. The second part, try to change it to pointer, it's easier. These are our servers. We look at different manufacturing, creating servers. The red ones are uninterrupted power supplies or UPSs or backup batteries. These are disaster recovery solutions, backup disaster recovery, and the last part are firewalls. Out of those many vendors, we decided to go with Ruckus, switches, Ruckus, APs, extensive access points, which is the one you provide hot wireless connectivity in the classrooms. Cisco server, Fortinet for firewall, and N1C UPSs. For those not familiar with N1C UPSs, they're high-end lithium-ion batteries. They last longer, it's a lot lighter. The traditional UPS is extremely heavy and takes a lot of spaces.
How long would we be up if we were down?
Great question. For data center, we decided, look at the history of the El Segundo. We don't have much of the power cut. We decided to go for 30 minutes for data center and 15 to 20 minutes for our sites.
Enough time to securely shut down.
Correct. And we never had any power cut more than that. This whole city be down for more than half an hour. Luckily, we located in a very good area. Why we decided to go with Ruckus? They have excellent support and simplified licensing. Extremely easy to license all their equipments. They'll have a reliable switches and wireless access points. They have an easy security implementation and management. I had the chance to implement one of those. It's extremely easy compared to any other manufacturer like Cisco. And more importantly, I had a chance to talk to my couple of colleagues back in this laser pointer goes off there. There you go. Modesto City Schools, and back to one of the questions and one of the respective board members asked, can we add high school? Yes. Modesto City School have 33 schools with over 30,000 students. They use that. There you go. They have 30,000 students. They use the exact same setup, Ruckus access point and Ruckus access switches. Exact same brand were decided to use our school district, same model, same configuration. And San Mateo City, Foster City, they have 21 schools and over 10,000 students. They use exact same configurations, which means we are 2,500 students, consider 10 times more, 25,000 students. We still have place to grow.
The beauty of the equipment is that it's modular, right? So you add as needed. There's no dead end with any of this. And Ruckus, if you may not have heard of them, has a great pedigree. They were bought out by companies you would recognize. They're still called Ruckus. I was curious because I'd never heard of them before. But if you look them up, their pedigree is, goes into the, and it's American made. That was one of the things that we were really concerned about also, that we weren't dependent on Chinese technology for this equipment. So Palo Alto and US made. So that was another important feature for the equipment selections. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Here is the RFQ process. We send the RFQ out, our BOM or bill of materials on 13th of March, and we set the deadline for 31st of March. We send it to 8 different vendors listed on the top. And there are 4 participants actually respond to our RFQ, which is IT management, DGI, and CWG. SHI is marked as blue because they came with the different solutions which you might not be interested, but I thought just as long as they respond to RFQ, I just mentioned it there. But out of those 3, we responded to our requested materials. Here's the numbers, actually summarize it and rank it by the total price. The IT management took the first place, $888,000 and $133.16, and DGI second place, and CWG third place. As you can see, the column in first column is the switches, access point server, and firewall. That's a breakdown of the prices.
These are for exactly identical equipment.
Correct. Yes,
Does this include installation? This is just the hardware?
just the hardware.
Right.
Yes. We considering 1-1 replacement is what we have. If we have 50 switches and 100 access points, we ask the exact same numbers. That number can change, but during the process, as Noemi mentioned, the process, we have to bring somebody to look at it, we do a walkthrough, and a lot of things might change. We always consider a place for growth. It's a dead area. We've never been covered now, like a field, a soccer field in Dana, or in the outdoor areas. We're going to consider putting access point there as well. The students see outside, they want to read the Chromebooks, they have great connectivity there as well. And this is a recommendation and action steps. For recommendation, I've split it 2 parts. Priority 1, phase 1. We're gonna request board to approve the purchasing of equipment through the IT management based off the numbers we see in the previous slide. And then action step will be on-site preliminary assessment by IT management. And by May 11th, before the board, as a set of priority 1 as a phase 2, I'm going to bring this items, and a lot of items on the board. Professional services proposal, how much it's going to cost to install the equipment's configuration and so on. I'm hoping to come up with the estimated date of installation as well. I'm pushing it because I really want to do it over summer as much as we can. But I'll have to see the vendor's availability and the resources as well.
So the installer would not be ITM, you're doing an RFQ or a request for proposals for the installation?
Yes. Right. Yes. I just wanted to get that confirmation. We're going to look at the equipment delivery and storage, where we're going to store it. Based off the kind of brief conversation having many vendors, we might end up storing the devices here because of 6 switches and over 100 access points. We need a larger space to secure them.
And it has to be secure.
Absolutely.
The real trick here is that Amir would like to get all this equipment ordered, delivered, and installed by the time school starts in the fall. So very ambitious, but really important because parts of this time will be down.
Can we get started on this prior to the bond funding?
That I have no idea. I mean, we are starting on the definition.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
We're going to bring the backup disaster recovery solution proposal, security software solutions, backup batteries, which UPSs, phones, software licensing, staff and student devices, and network wirings. All the costs and how much it's going to cost.
Now, our current Chromebooks Do our current phones work with this system or we're replacing the phones?
Preliminary assessment we did, we might have run into some problems. That's
Mhm.
why we considering going to the new phones. The current phones is not secure, the new phones will be secure.
Right,
So
right.
That's one of the benefits.
Yeah, it's a security item too.
Security items, yes.
But the Chromebooks are okay.
Yes, we might need to refresh some of them,
Uh-huh.
while we going through the cycle, refresh as we need it. We don't want to purchase something we don't need.
Okay,
But we recently ordered last board meeting.
Right.
Board approved 700 Chromebooks.
we just ordered pilot Chromebooks, right?
Correct.
And they're okay with this plan?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All
Yes,
right, good.
absolutely. I'll go nothing except Wi-Fi 6E, 5 or 6E. Because, yeah, because you're gonna have a high bandwidth come to classrooms. Sorry, Blake. After you pointing at me, sorry.
As a follow-up conversation or a question to Neil's point, on the procurement of the equipment, it's about $900,000. We won't have Measure EE funds till May, June, until the first series of bond sale. So are we looking to refund that with the general fund? And then backfill that with Measure EE once the first series A is sold?
Yeah, Sheree, do you have an, I know, I thought I talked to Noemi about that. Do you, or maybe you do you have an answer for that? Did we say we were gonna do an intent? We were gonna sign an intent to purchase with the company. Does that sound right?
So I did speak with the company, IT management, will, when they hold on the equipment based on, board approval, this evening. And then once an actual purchase order is issued, then they will be able to process the orders to actually receive, so. There's funding. Yeah, I'm not with Jason.
Yeah, so we'll have to explore that. We're gonna have to further explore that.
Basically, it sounds like they'll hold the pricing if we do an intent, because they know that the bond fund is gonna be sold. I think I understand.
Right,
So we have a reserve for it, Jason.
Has been, the products being available for the summer's, delivery and installation. That's the.
That's good news. I did not know that.
Yes.
Repeat that to a joke, because she's not at my.
Go to the mic, because it's hard to hear you. Thank you.
So we have spoken to the vendor to confirm that product availability will be available for delivery and installation for this summer. So as long as the purchase is approved this evening, we will communicate to the vendor, letting them know that the board has approved. They're going to reach out to the manufacturers and have all of the equipment put on hold and in queue. And then once the purchase order is released to them, they will then start the full process in the order.
And can we ensure that they don't have an interest rate on a delivery of delayed invoicing?
They are committed to their pricing. I did ask all those questions.
Thank you.
I made sure that shipping, delivery, freight, everything was inclusive of the total that they did provide to us.
Thank you very much.
Let's conclude my presentation. The last slide, I just really want to thank everybody in this process and Board of Education, leadership, technology committee, NAZ, maintenance operation, Jonathan and his team, and my wonderful team, Jason, Neely, and Juan, which is not here tonight. And of course, respective vendors who take the initiative to, participate in our RFQs. They did a great job and I really appreciate it. Without helping them, I wouldn't be able to stand here and talk. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Javier. Thank you.
Thank you for saving us money and making us more secure.
Thank you.
Right, I think that concludes our presentation. And now from the board, and we'll start with our president, Mr. Roger Banuelos.
Thank you, everyone. I have some good news, some nice news to share with everyone. That actually some news of gratitude for all of our Wiseburn teachers. My son Matthew has decided and has selected his college. He's gonna be going to San Diego State University, so I wanted to say thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to Matthew. Very proud of the education he's received here within the Wiseburn Unified School District. And of course, doing high school here at Da Vinci Science. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of help from so many people within our district to get this a student to get started from kindergarten, even preschool here within the Wiseburn School District, and then go through every one of the schools and eventually graduate high school. He's still senior, he's still here, so he can't get any D's or F's. Otherwise, the admission's rescinded, but yeah, no danger of doing that. He's doing excellent at Da Vinci Schools. So I just wanted to extend a warm thank you to everybody that's contributed to his education, that's allowing him to go to San Diego State University. So mom and dad are very proud of him, and I wanted to share that with them. And thank you very much.
Congratulations. I think you got the state of California covered.
I do. I got 3 now. So Berkeley, UC, Santa Barbara, and now San Diego State. So I have 3 in college next year. So needless to say, I won't be retiring anytime soon.
Reaching out to King Consulting for.
I should. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bowman.
Thank you, Nelson. Was able to attend open house last night at Anza. That was inspiring. It's just so much fun to see the teachers and the students and the families and the joy and the love and watching. I did something different this year, actually. I got to watch, just kind of stand at the doorway and watch the teachers interact with their students and see so much love and so much inspiration. And that was like, it's why I do this. It's why we're here. And it was just so fulfilling and so inspiring. I used the word that too many times, but it was truly that way. So thank you to all the teachers. I couldn't be in 2 places at once, so I wasn't able to go to, I think it was 138. Yeah, and unfortunately, but it was great being there. Second, thank you to Joanne and Jason and Blake for the budget committee today. And want to recognize Susan Castellanos, Robin Elder, and Chris Torrey for their participation. I know Dr. Dougal and Dr. Harvey also were there. So important to review our budget to see where we're going. I appreciate the stewardship you are leading us with and the fact that we're in good shape and have a plan for the future. So thank you very much. Good to see. I think, Dr. Silver, in your presentation, I'll talk about the strategic planning work. So that's fine. So and then we'll get to that. So that'll do it for me. Nelson.
Thanks, Nelson. So last night I had the honor of attending the 10th annual Southwest SELPA Community Advisory Committee Staff and Community Partners Award Night. Mouthful. SELPA is the special education local plan area. All the SELPAs have the same basic goal to deliver high quality special education training and services to students with disabilities. And the Southwest SELPA services actually over 13,000 students in 12 school districts, as well as 8 charter schools. And the Community Advisory Committee, which I had the honor of serving on before I joined this board, is a group of parents and educators, community members who are concerned about the educational needs of children with disabilities. And basically the CAC serves in an advisory capacity, but they do this wonderful thing every year. They have for 10 years. Last night was the 10th of these, and 3 certificated staff from Wiseburn were recognized: Karen Erico, Taylor Ring, and Shay Denham. And so I just wanted to say congratulations to the 3 of them for being recognized. I know they're providing dedicated, wonderful service to the students with special needs within our district. And I also want to just say that because I was the CAC rep, we have a vacancy from Wiseburn on the Community Advisory Committee. And I actually think we have 2 reps per district. So if there are any parents or community members or anybody else who's listening out there who is interested in serving in that capacity, please reach out to Peggy and Peggy Mazzarella about joining the CAC. It's really a wonderful thing. There's lots of education that you receive from being part of the committee, and being able to bring that information back to the district is really critical to how we service our students here and families. So just wanted to say that, and like I said, congratulations again to all of those students. And then my role as the WEF liaison would not be complete if I didn't mention that tomorrow is the deadline for pre-sale tickets for Rock Around the Block. So please make sure that you've gone on and bought those. There's a lot of really cool things that you can buy pre-sale, including like t-shirts and meals and all kinds of stuff to try and reduce your time in line and maximize your time enjoying the rides and wonderful performances from students and things like that. So encourage everybody to go on the Wiseburn Education Foundation website and make their purchases for that. And we're looking forward to Rock Around the Block on April 29th. Also, the auction is open, so it's their main fundraiser for the year. So please make sure that you go on and bid and get all those wonderful things, whether they're, tickets to baseball games or restaurant gift cards or that Mother's Day present that you haven't bought yet. Whatever it is, there's probably something for you in the auction. So please make sure that you're going out and supporting WEF and all that they do, which in turn supports all of the wonderful programs for arts and music education, STEAM learning that happen within the district. So thank you to WEF for all that they're doing, and we're looking forward to Rock Around the Block on April 29th. And look, Wendy, I didn't need the tissues.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by, I guess my comments tonight are a lot to do with thank yous. I'd like to thank the now large number of volunteers that are in line here to represent the Bond Oversight Committee. That shows a lot of enthusiasm on the part of our community. First of all, thanks for passing the bond, and now folks who are stepping forward to help us administer the bond. It's very exciting. I'm very thankful for all the planning we're doing for the priorities of our district. First of all, that we had the facilities master plan in place to help us going forward to planning for utilization of the bond. I want to thank Amir very much in his short time here in the district to understand our needs and to put forward a secure network upgrade plan that will serve our district well for now and into the future. I want to thank Jason for his presentation today at the budget committee meeting. I think it was a great way to start our meetings to level set everyone's terminology and current conditions of the budget and the future looking forward. So thank you for that. I think we have a really good approach in place to execute plans. You can't execute a plan unless you have one. And I think we are doing a really good job with planning. I want to thank our various vendors as they're coming forward, very professional, very encouraging, very providing us with a lot of confidence in our forward progress. So thank you for all of that. Thank you to our staff also, because I know none of this happens without the district staff support from everyone. Thank you for that, Blake, especially, and our board for participating in all the community activities as well as the various budget tech and so forth as we go forward. So it's really a group to be proud of and a group that you're proud to participate in conjunction with this group. So thanks to the community and to this team. Thanks a lot.
Well, each of my colleagues have captured the comments that I was going to say, so I'll keep it short. I just echo that and say thank you very much to everybody and the entire team. And with that, I'll turn it over to Blake.
We have no leadership reports today. I have a couple comments and reports. We'll get to the end, Neil. I'll add the art again. Just a couple quick things. Did want to share. I know it's been brought up that we had 20, maybe 21 applications for the CBOC committee, for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. I'm really excited about that. We'll have an opportunity to go through that. Remember, just there are 7 categories that have to be met. 7 categories of people of representation that we need on that. So we're doing some cross-referencing. I believe every category at last check was covered. So really happy about that. But that does sort of allot people into certain spots because that's their category essentially that they would represent in the community. But definitely an overwhelming response, that we're really happy for. So thank you to those that got that message out, that shared that message. Thank you to the homeowner associations. Very, very helpful. Holly Glen and Del Air and the Wiseburn Watch. Eddie was super helpful. So just really, really happy for that support from our community and getting the word out so that people would feel comfortable and confident that they could do the work. So excited about the next steps there. Looking forward to those meetings coming up. We also on Tuesday, Monique, next week, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday, sorry. On Tuesday next week, we're gonna be hosting our almost our final renaming committee meeting. I know we shared the information with this board. We haven't had it, we're just now able to have this meeting. So we're just putting it together so people can be there. Real good plan for that. I know I've talked to some board members offline too, so we'll make some adjustments here to the program just so that we make sure we get the accurate feedback. So all good there. Looking forward to that next phase as well. Also had an opportunity to join. I saw I was with Rebecca yesterday at the CAC meeting or the SELPA meeting where we were able to honor some of our staff members. It was just a really nice event. It was such a nice event. It was a really good feeling event. They did a really good job. Redondo was really nice. And Peggy, I am so sorry. Peggy was there too. Yes, Peggy was there. And Peggy actually had to hand out the award because we had to run back to open house as well. So Peggy stayed for the duration. Definitely it's a long night, but a nice night and a nice recognition of those people that do really, really good work for our students. It's really a recognition of our students as well, through those people. Then got to come to the open houses here at 138th Street. Got to, it's kind of a run through, I mean, you really want to get to every classroom and see every classroom. I did fail at that this year, but I tried. And just really my hats off to seeing the classrooms and the work. And Dr. Goldman, I think I liked how you categorize, how you shared your experience. The engagement was just so high. Parents were excited. They were talking to their kids and kids were looking. It was just a really, really nice feeling, a very nice event. Seemed like energy was back. I know, and we were talking, Nelson and I were talking about that as well. So all good. So I just wanted, it's a real feel good moment. I think it is the why we're here type moment in the school year. Also had a chance to join the Weisburn Ed Foundation on Tuesday night, I think it was. They had their meeting as they're preparing for Rock Around the Block. And I'm sorry to say the dunk tank can't happen this year. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, that was wishful thinking. It will be happening. And yes, I'm first in the dunk tank at 10 a.m. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to going out to that event. It was a really wonderful event last year. And so just looking forward to seeing our community members, our students perform. So that's coming up right around the corner. And then lastly, have had the privilege, I have to say, I've had the privilege for several years of talking to Dr. Goldman and working with Dr. Goldman on strategic planning. Is something that he does, in his work life and his other life, I guess. But it's really it's just really been eye-opening. It's been great conversation, I think, over the years, trying to figure out how to take, strategic planning and bring it into schools, which I think is often missing a lot in schools and in school governance. So really excited about those conversations and now moving some of it forward. So we've started and we're going to continue. And so I think Dr. Goldman's going to you'll share a little bit of an update here. Yeah, can we, Amir, I sent you that presentation. Can we just?
So you bet. As you're looking for that, this is exciting. I'm very excited about this. And I like, Joanne, what you said a minute ago, can't execute a plan unless you have one. And I would argue that the best way to create a plan is to have a strategic foundation below it that's driving the plan. So we've done some terrific work here in part of our work relative to strategic planning, but we have not finished it. And that's what I'm excited for us to be doing moving forward. This is something I'm reaching to the board to share. This is something we talked about 2.5, 3 years ago, but COVID kind of got in the way. So finally enabling us to get back and move this forward. So it's kind of a hokey thing, but I would like to share it this way. Rudyard Kipling said in 1902, I had 6 serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where and who. So if you'll go to the next slide, they really provide, it's hard to see this, but I'll walk you through it. They really provide us those answers, what and why and when, how and where and who. If we answer those, they provide the basis for our strategic foundation. And this argument is you're only as strong as your foundation. So what is your foundation? What is our foundation here? And you'll notice the 5 pillars of strategic planning on the top, why, who, what, how, and where, and you'll notice when is missing. And when is the only one that's not of those 6 I listed, because the time to have strategic planning, act on strategic planning, align to your strategic planning is always now. So there's no need for a when, right? It's always now. So why is our reason for being? So Amir, actually, if you could point to these, that'd be great. If you could point to them as I'm going, right under purpose to the left on the top in the green, up, there you go, right there. Our reason for being is our why. We've defined our purpose. We're going to get to that in a second. Move to the right. Who are we here to serve? Who is our target, or in our case, our audience? Is it students? Is it the community? Is it the families in our community? Does it broaden? What are we here to contribute to them? How, and then keep going. How are we going to work together to make this happen? And then finally, where are we going? What's our ultimate destination as an organization, in our case, as our schools? What's our quest? What quest are we on? So if you go to the bottom ones, going through those, our why is defined. The elements in blue are already defined. We've done those. We have done our purpose, our engage, empower, elevate. That's our why. Whenever we interact with anyone, whenever we're planning, what's our why? To engage, empower, and elevate. We have not defined our niche or our target. It's students, but is it students plus? That would change our allocation of resources. What's our foundation? We're going to be getting input on that. Our contributions are our pillars. So we're going to use the different models. We don't confuse ourselves with models. Our pillars, right? Safety, student-centered, future-ready, community collaboration, and organizational strength. And they inform our LCAP and our planning. Keep going. Our values are how we work together. And finally, our vision again is our quest. So one last slide here. And that's the next slide. It's another way of looking at it. The blue again are the items that we have defined. And you don't have to point anymore. You can just see it. The why are that? Where did it go? That's right. So we have again defined our why and our what. There are 3 more elements: how we'll work together, who we're here to serve, and where are we going. Now that may sound obvious, but for us to clarify this, define this, there's incredible research on organizational development and planning that suggests the organizations have aligned focus, have focus and alignment are more successful. I do want to importantly mention, this does not mean losing individuality. We can all have our individual ways of executing this, but if we're all aligned, if we're all rowing together, the boat will go much faster and we'll reach our destination that much better. And that's what we're trying to do here. So the way we're going to do that is a survey. Maybe Dr. Silvas, I'll turn this back to you, and you can talk about what we're doing next to execute this and get our answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next steps, we actually have a survey that'll be going out to Cabrillo staff next week on Wednesday. It's going to be an opportunity to share insight on these very topics that Dr. Goldman shared on values, as well as on the audience and on our destination. So looking at where we're going to go. Then the following week, same Wednesdays, I believe it's the 3rd. Is that right? Okay, sorry. Yeah, May 3rd, we'll have we'll go out to the rest of our campuses so that they'll be able to fill out the same survey. Dr. Goldman and I will take time to look at that data, be able to, just take a look at where we are. And then we will be having a guiding coalition meeting. So I don't have all the dates with me. I didn't memorize them. What? May 23rd, we're going to have guiding coalition. It's going to be a large group of our teacher leaders coming in, as well as our math committee participants, ADCO participants, our administrators, to come in and have a conversation about the values. And Dr. Goldman will be helping us with that. So looking forward to those, then we can bring back to the board some options and changes. I know Dr. Goldman and I had also talked about potentially cutting some of the language out of our descriptors for the 5 pillars, what we're calling the 5 pillars in our assurances, is that we maybe cut them down a little bit so they're a little more succinct, a little more to the point. So looking forward over the next month or so, a month and a half or so, to really start diving into this work so that we can spend some time during the summer, whether it be through a retreat or a half-day workshop with the board, that we can put some of this into operation.
So exciting stuff. Looking forward to filling out the holes in our target, if you will, and strategic planning moving forward. So thank you very much, and excited about this. You bet.
Thank you, Ian. That's excellent. Thank you, Blake, as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's it for me too, Nelson. I'm done.
Wendy, any comments from the public on agenda items? Okay. Okay, now we can continue with the remainder of our items, the consent item is the first one to, I think we could take all of them unless somebody has an objection to that.
We need to approve the agenda before we
We do
approve
that.
the item.
We do that.
The consent agenda?
We approve the whole. We approve the whole agenda.
I know, but 10.1 is to approve the consent agenda.
It's to approve the entire consent agenda, so you have to move 10.1 to approve the consent agenda. And vote on it, it's one vote for the whole consent.
Okay, so I'll move to approve 10.1.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You've done that before? I don't think so.
I don't recognize.
Neither do I. So,
But I love it. 10.1, we approve the whole consent agenda.
It approves the consent agenda.
Okay, so we don't have to do.
We're on 11.
Okay. All right.
We can do a redo.
Oh.
Drag it out, Nelson.
That's better. All right, action items. I will leave it to my colleagues if you want to make a motion.
No, so I think so we would take 11.1 by itself just for the minutes,
Individually.
and then the rest, I think we could actually take maybe in
Okay, do we have a
conjunction.
Motion to approve 11.1.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And do we want to?
I'll move 11.2 to 11.5.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Do we want to do CSEA and WFA separately or just?
I think we can do it together. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second 11.2 through 11.5.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic.
I'd like to motion 12.1.
Sure. You have a second?
I'll second with appreciation to Amir to deciphering the most incomprehensible things that were in this board packet. So thank you very much. I feel much better.
I want to thank Amir and also Joanne for all the work.
Amir did the work.
So thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda items fiscal. And I think we could take these all together as well. Okay, great.
We could, and I would just add one comment on 13.1, just to clarify.
Please do.
We want to move.
Yes, do we have a motion?
Move 13.1 through 13.3.
Rebecca, second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Roger. And
I would.
we have a good comment.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, thank you to Cherie on 13.1, Colby Technology. This is an opportunity for us to really synthesize our bond financing and be able to provide presentations, operate, do our procurement. Some of it's now online procurement. We're not gonna be collecting items, at the main office. I mean, there's just ways that this is really gonna make the process more efficient. And Cherie worked with Colby Technologies to actually get a really good rate, a good discount for the district. So really excited to get this into play.
Excellent. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And items 14 personnel action items. And I think we might be able to take these all together as well. Do you have a motion?
I'll motion 14.1 through 14.3.
You go ahead. Have a second? Thank you, Rebecca. All in favor?
Aye.
No, I think.
Point of information.
I was gonna say too late, no. We're just gonna, I was thinking, Nisha, item 14.1, the 210 workday.
Correct. So currently our coordinators work less days in the year, and based on just needing their assistance in the summer for strategic planning, professional development, and providing professional development, we are recommending to the board that our coordinators have the same number of work days as our elementary school principals do. So it is a way to ensure that we have them available in the summer to provide for strategic planning as well as professional development.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any
And
other questions on those items?
I have a question for Wendy. Did we vote or not vote? Okay.
Oh, actually, Nisha, I do have a question, sorry. On the BCBA, is that someone that's going to be available across the district, or is that for a specific school site, or what's the?
So it'll be across the district. This year, our BCBA is actually an agency BCBA. And so we're looking to see if we can get our own employee instead of having a contract out for the BCBA. So similar concept as the current BCBA, offering services to all students across the district.
Thank you.
Question, how many students are requiring BCBA services? Roughly.
You got that right off the top of your head.
I don't have it off the top of my head,
All right.
but I'm gonna say 50.
Really?
The person does assessments and they support students in the classrooms, they support with training, they hopefully, we have kids with one-on-one aids and we really need to be supervising that and removing the aids as is appropriate for the student per their IEP and following them with data. So there's a lot that goes on with those in that job.
Okay, thank you.
And so I believe I have a motion and a second on this item, so all in favor? So I'm not gonna adjourn the closed session just quite yet, because I think we have some upcoming important dates and events to announce, right, Blake? And I know Rebecca already mentioned about the one block coming April 29th. We want to keep repeating that. Like that, and then Blake, I'll go ahead and turn it to you here for the calendar and events coming up.
So we just obviously yesterday we shared, we had our open houses at Anza 138, but coming up next week, we have Cabrillo Elementary School's open house, and actually what's not on here, I need to add this, is Dana Middle School's SLCs are also that Wednesday as well, so that's Wednesday, May 3rd. Then we have our LCAP committee coming up May 8th, really looking forward to that. I know Eileen's put a lot of time into that. Thank you, Eileen, for all the work you've done there. We have some board meetings coming up, lots of board meetings actually coming up as we close the school year, get ready to start our budget planning and all of that. So yeah, I mean, that's what's on the docket. I know that we will be in July. Roger had asked for a Title I. We had talked about a Title I presentation. We talked about the preschool presentation. We did both of those. And then we're going to be bringing the special ed presentation in July. So we'll do it at the meeting then.
And one more question, maybe for Dr. Acey, the May revise for the budget, the mayor, the governor's announcement is coming when? And is it before our next board meeting or after?
It might be after. Yeah.
That's what
It's usually by May 15th.
May 15th, okay. That's gonna be very interesting for us. So thank you.
Yeah, it's early May, and then the actual update from school services is May 18th. May 18th, 19th, May 19th.
And then I have a request for the LCAP meetings that we're making sure that we're getting the word out to all of our community organizations and like WEF and the PTA folks, and so that we get more of those parent participation at the thing. I mean, I don't know. I just felt like at the last one, folks didn't seem to know that it was happening. And so just want to make sure that we're communicating with folks about the schedule.
The LCAP committee is, it's like school site council, it's a group of people who meet regularly to go, or a number of times to go. This year's revision, of course, just takes fewer meetings, but we do go out to all the PTAs and we go out and talk to student focus groups. So we go to them knowing that not everyone can come to us. So there is outreach, and it looks a little different than just a committee meeting, but we have been out reaching out and asking people for interest. And we actually had some new members last time.
Yeah.
So we're real pleased about that.
All right, thank you.
I want to thank WEF for having so much online presence, for being able to volunteer for Rock Around the Block online, to participate in the auction online. It is really easy and probably works well for WEF as well to get folks to volunteer. Anyway, I did my thing. I'm not going in the dunk tank. Anyway, I think it's a great thing.
I said I would, and last year I had a sinus infection. This year I said I would do it again. So, or for the first time. Y'all convinced me last year not to do it while I was sick.
I know I've done it.
Have
No, I
not
won't
done
do
it.
All right, do it, Nelson.
All done, Emily?
I'm done.
All right. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our meeting. Meeting adjourned.